Is being recorded.
I know I am. Shocked. You get your you get your 1099 from her. Let me get it before you leave. Okay. Huh?
When I go, usually I've got like I think I've got like 30 slides or something.
Okay.
Most of the time I'll get through about 10 minutes.
Really? Wow.
Just start asking questions.
Wow. Huh? I got it though. I need to print it. Maybe I just need to print it. You sure? Email. You sure? Yeah, let me print it out for you. It's got your social on it. I don't want to email it. Yeah. Who? Robert. Guzman, yeah. Email. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I got you. That's cool. Huh? It's up to Bruce. She wants to know if she can record you and vlog. Like, yeah. Oh, I know you do. Yeah, I know. I know. I followed you on YouTube the other day too. Yeah, I did. I gave you a subscriber on YouTube. Oh, you. Oh, really? Okay. I love it. So when are you going to start doing real estate content on your YouTube? Oh, this gonna be today? Okay, okay. Because it's been mostly like fitness and like just day day in the life stuff. Yeah, okay. I got you. Uh-huh. Okay. Really? Wow, that's good. Hey, people, they were waiting on you. You know what, Bruce? If you could, I want to let this thing face track you really quickly, so that way you can move around like that. You are okay, yeah. So it'll follow you. Why is it not picking up? Let's see. You know what? Hey, Dana. You know what? Come a little closer if you don't mind. Just so I want to make sure it grabs your face. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that'll work. Let's see. Yeah. Why aren't you tracking? Let me see something here. Maybe it's Zoom. Let's see here. Hey, Dana. How you doing today? Good. Dana, this is Bruce from the Real Estate Commission. Dana, right there. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Hey. Hey, Yadi. You said long time no talk. I'm sure. That's probably one of the longest phone calls you have too, huh?
But it's like every Monday. I'm expecting
Oh, I bet. Oh, I am sure. Oh man, hey,
Hey,
how
how
are you
are you?
today?
I'm
Good to
good.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Now, you an agent already, or you gonna get your license? It depends on what he says today.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. 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 Oh man. But yeah, you know what? Have a seat anywhere. Okay. Yep. Anywhere. Okay. Those smell good. I may have to get me a little bagel. Well, I'm supposed to have a bagel, but I mean, you gonna tell me that? Who's the coach? You said two on the state field? Oh yeah? Oh, they had a giveaway. It was a giveaway. Did you meet Bruce? Bruce was Bruce there commission the other time. You probably won't ask me. Really, I was surprised. Oh man. Now, a few more stragglers, but it was like in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay.
So, after he came back and before I could he said, I want to terminate my fire. When you went. And he was like, I didn't say, okay. And you just came home and it wasn't no thank you. Well, yeah, because, yeah, like, I was like, I'm not. Yeah, so then, and then the next day, broke up.
They work us.
Hey, can you guys hear on Zoom? Can somebody unmute and tell them if they can hear on Zoom?
Yeah, we can hear. I hear
Okay,
talking.
thank you, Curtis. And good morning.
Good morning.
Next one. She's just, no. So once you your own brand, you're an LLC or something. So all you have to do is just get a state ID. No, just different. Lawyer identification. LLC. They will give you.
No, I remember, yes, you were.
Take that.
No, no, I wasn't there. I was like, hey, that's.
Says application. You'll apply for Secretary of State ID.
Okay.
Right now, we're crazy about because they get close to. So it should take a couple of weeks to set it up. What will happen is an active full broker for 2 years or more affiliate. So you won't be able to advertise. You'll need right? You get paid to write. So they will mention section 11 on that form, firm license. Section 11 talks about establishing a firm just for probably can't tell you you can't because what happens is as soon as you get a firm license you cannot advertise it because you need a bid to advertise it. So you need to hire a bid for Realty. So how long will it take you to be affiliated with a firm? But I mean, so you'll have to wait until December 31st now 2025. You have to be 2 years. A full broker, not a official. Yeah. So you can't use, so you can, call yourself the Hill or the Hill right now. And it can say, everybody. You don't want to ask it out loud. So But there's no part, my emails there, email me the benefits. Yeah. They're a bunch of emails.
Oh, it's tracking somebody.
Was it tracking?
Should be tracking you. No, it went that way.
Somebody more attractive.
I don't know. What are you looking for, Cameron? Stay up there. All right, there we go. Hey, guys. Hey, family back there. Listen, y'all come on around, man. Bruce is not going to bite. I want to make sure you didn't have to yell at back there and all that good stuff. Come on around. Come on around, please. Hey, man. Oh, yes, sir. You must really like us. You back again for the second week. I know. Welcome back, man. Yes, sir. Welcome back. Who's up with this introduce if you don't mind? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Can you believe it's already March? I know, right? Listen, the year is flying by already. First quarter's almost over. And I'm happy to say, man, you guys are kicking some tail, man. So kudos to you that are out there busting your tails, man, working hard, building your real estate business, man, and helping to grow the lifestyle brand. So thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. We do have a few guests in the house. Real quick before we get started with Bruce. We'll start over here. Who are you, ma'am? Luke, stand up for us. There we go.
Sorry, I'm eating, but I'm Jakia Glenn. I'm a receptionist at the Harbor Center in Charlotte. It's a transitional housing program. And today is my first day. So I'm willing to learn whatever y'all got for me.
Okay, awesome. Now, are you a real estate agent?
I am not.
You're
I
not
was
an agent.
invited by y'all.
Okay, perfect. And what brought you over here?
I've always been interested in interior design, so she was kind of just broadening my horizon a little bit.
Okay.
You know,
Okay, so maybe want to be a real estate agent one day, depending
you
on
never know.
how bad Bruce scares you today about real estate. Right? Okay, love it. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, who are you, ma'am? Yes.
Dana Speakman with J. Park Carolina Living. I have been a realtor going on 18 years. I know Sean from KW. He's been recruiting me.
Forever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I said, let me come check out the meeting, but I believe I'm going to transition from my firm to there.
Woo! Hey, yeah. Hey. Love it. Now, I know, right? Dana's also a productivity coach, man. So, like, she'd be a huge asset to our family. I've known Dana for a while, man. And the class act, okay, morals very high. So very thankful, man, that you consider us. I really appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely.
And I say the same about him all the time.
No, I appreciate that.
Great guy.
I'll pay you later. I know, right? All right. Now, you know what? You were at Tijuana's office last week, okay? But not a lot of people got to meet you last week. So please tell us again who you are. Hey.
I am Chris Brett. Just finished the public license class yesterday.
Oh man.
So yeah, looking forward to doing a lot of things on my side. Get it out of the way.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Man, listen, we're happy to have you, man. This is the perfect day for you to come because that commission you've been hearing about.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Right, there you go. Okay, so we've got another newbie in the house. Oh yeah, don't twist your eyes. Oh yeah. Please stand up and tell us who you are.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's Sako, and I'm so excited about being here. I've
Hey.
been overwhelmed, but I'm gonna make it. I'm telling you.
You've been overwhelmed?
Very.
I know. So we've got, I know you're a hairdresser, okay? We've got another one here as well, Kia, over there also, there's hairdresser, yeah. Oh yeah, yes, I forgot about that, yeah. Yes, love it. So my hairdressers, I hope all of your smocks say lifestyle, okay, or something. You can make it one, two, here you go. Here you go, perfect. Whatever, this guy, Okay. And you visited us before, but please tell us who you are again for those that don't know you. Learning more about real estate. Yeah, 19. Yeah, little baby over there. There we go. I wish somebody told me about real estate when I was 19. What? Come on. I'd be filthy rich by now. Yes. Okay, so listen, for my guests, man, thank you all for coming today. Really appreciate it, man. You spend some time with us on a Tuesday morning when you could be doing something else. So we really appreciate that. Now, victories. Who's got some victories they want to share real quick? Nobody. You do, oh, okay, new person. Hey.
Just last February, I hosted my first event at work.
Okay.
I work at a transitional home, so we do little things for the situational homes.
Okay.
So I did a Valentine's paint kind of sip kind of party.
Okay.
Not real sip, but you know.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was good. So there's more to come.
More to come. Hey, all right. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. It's kind of like an AA meeting. Thank you for sharing, right? Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Who else has a victory they want to share?
I'll jump in.
My guy. Yeah.
So I'm Mike Valdez, whatever you want to call me. If he's called me Mike, whatever. I'm a partner out of the Charlotte, Fort Mill area. So I was going to work for us long enough to realize I started. Thankfully, I did.
I don't know why this.
Allowed it to thrive. Didn't take over the Carolinas. But I only want to introduce myself so you guys can know you have an additional resource. My number's in the WhatsApp chat. If you want it, come get it from me. You can call me, text me anytime. I mean that. Call me, text me. I don't really check WhatsApp as much because you WhatsApp me if there response that way. That's why. Call me, text me. I will answer immediately. All right. Any questions you have? I am a person realtor out of Florida. So I do work with that realty group on that bridge side of the firm, like my luxury cousin. So anything you have any questions about, whether it be the smallest of smallest sales, the highest of highest sales, we've done anything from 100,000 to 20 million. All right. So whatever questions you have, I'm here as a resource. Happy to have you guys. Happy to be here. And then I win. I do have to win. For anybody that knows what I do, I do physical, right? Guys, whenever you're lead generating, it's not just a physical. Real quick, you do it all the time without thought, without question, whether you don't want to make a phone call today, whether you don't want to post on social media, do something. Saturday, I was in that mood. I didn't want to call. I was like, you know what? I got 2 hours before I gotta get out of the house. I need to go to Carolina all day. I don't have time to do anything. But I need time to just text. I text 17 owners for several hours. Got a good response. Started going back and forth with one lady. Got to listen to Saturday.
Yeah.
I was gonna send you things. I was gonna be something because I was being lazy all out of the month. I didn't turn on phone calls because I was busy, but I wanted to do something. So I wouldn't send a text. I wouldn't have had a $680,000 commission check that I wouldn't have done. I would have done that one little text. So just do something, whether it's post a social, one Instagram post, one social media story, one message to a family, whatever it is, do something. If you're doing something every day, real estate related, it's gonna work. You do one thing a day, at least something every day. Don't ever tell yourself, well, that's not really good for you. I never thought I'd get listening from they come. You never think you can get a listening from one of those videos. They come. You never know who's watching at the right time, right place. So make sure you're constantly out.
In between the lines right there, two things. Do something, right? Just do something. Okay. Thank you, Michael. And the other thing was, I am not the only person that you can call. You can call and get help. Okay. There's other people here that will take your phone calls and help you, namely Michael, Keisha, Latoya, yeah, Zen back there, okay, Tijuana, Yachty, right? Love, okay. There are other resources in here for you to call outside of 340-3822. Okay. I'm gonna start here. Do not disturb. The less. Awesome. Okay. Listen, thank you guys for sharing. I do have a victory, a couple of victories. 3 listings coming next week. One going live this weekend. I did create a separate group outside of our WhatsApp for people that love open houses. So if you want to be added to that group, let me know. It is again, it's in regular messenger. You want in, Sean? Okay, I'll put you in as well. So I drop in the open houses for my listings in that group. These are people that I know take good care of my open house. They door knock, cold call, all these things, man. The things that need to get done in this marketplace for us to be successful. So if you want in, you're committed to doing that work, I'll put you in the, all right? Cool beans. Hey, Tijuana. Hey, all right, doing well. Zen, where are you, man? Hey, bud, how you doing? Why you sitting way back there, man? Guys, listen, we're going to go ahead and bring Bruce up from the Real Estate Commission. So listen, I love this guy, okay, until he comes and audit me. But I do love this guy, man. So I call Bruce when I say all the time. I even leave messages at the commission. Like if other people pick up, I want to talk to Bruce because Bruce is very detailed in his explanations. All right, he's very nice when I call him as well. He's always seems just happy to speak to me. I'm not sure if he's happy when Yachty calls, but I know that Yachty now calls him all the time as well. He has been an incredible resource for me, you know, in my real estate journey, man, especially with the brokerage opening up and, you know, lots of questions you guys have. So I talked to him months ago about him coming to Charlotte. And when Yachty took over his broker in charge, I said, listen, we need to bring Bruce. So Yachty went ahead and spearheaded that for us. Very thankful to have you here. And hey, floor is yours, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So good morning. I want to thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you today. The idea is trying to take a little of the mystery away from the Real Estate Commission because people think that the Real Estate Commission has one job, and that's to take your license away. That is the last thing we want to do. We're in the business of giving out licenses. You earn them, and we give them to you, and we want to help you keep your license. So that's what we're trying to do, is get out in front of different firms and letting them know that we're here to support you. My job is solely to support brokers and consumers, okay? That's all I do. I don't initiate complaints. I don't record things where you have to worry about if you want to do it anonymously, you can, but that's not my function. My job is to help each and every one of you prevent a situation from arising so that you can be more successful in what you do and your clients can be happy and satisfied. You can have a successful transaction. Or worst case scenario, if you need to get out of it, doing it the right way because you have fiduciary duties to your clients. We help you fulfill those fiduciary duties. So what I do is I'm an information officer. My job is there are 2 information officers at the Real Estate Commission. And our job is to answer your phone calls. I answer about 8,000 phone calls a year. Okay? Those are all from brokers. So there's a lot of you out there. There's about 120,000 licensees in the state of North Carolina. So other brokers are doing that. That's why I gave my card out, is I want to encourage you to call. First, you always talk to your vet, with Sean, and then if you have any other questions, they're busy or they're not 100% sure, because what happens is you guys operate a lot in the gray area. Our job is to bring you back into the black and white, and you have confidence, and you know what exactly is supposed to happen. So it's always like I talk to Yachty every Monday, it seems, right? And she has really good. They're not. I wouldn't say they're simple questions. They're complex. You are very highly trained professionals. You do your 75 hours of pre-licensing. You pass the state federal exam. You do your 330 hours of post-licensing. Then you take your continuing education. And then you take your Gen Up or your BIC Up courses. We send out bulletins every month. And you're looking and you're reading our articles and you're looking at disciplinary actions against your colleagues and what has happened. And you try and use that information to try and figure out how do you keep that from happening to your client? How do you keep that from happening to yourself? So you're very highly trained. You're very savvy, okay? And your clients are very fortunate to have you. Now, I know in this day and age, there's a lot of information that's on the internet. So there's a lot of people who are trying to do this job themselves, and a lot more of the for sale by owners that you talk about. But I talk to for sale by owners every single day. And every single day, they have no idea what they're doing. and they're getting themselves into trouble. So you can provide a great service by helping these folks in, the for sale by owners. So don't be afraid to give us a call. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the top 10 complaints that we have. During this presentation, if any of you have questions, stop and ask them. I'm really here to answer your questions. I'm not really here to do a presentation because these are things that you can get from our website. By the way, our website is the best website of any state. You have a question, type in that search bar, and you will get hundreds of different bulletins we created and so forth for you to help you find your answer and feel sure about what you're doing. So this is going to be, so if you have questions, usually when I go and do presentations, I'll have, as I was telling John, I'll have like 30 slides. And if I get through 10 of them, I've done pretty good. Usually people are just blurting out questions. So it's that important. I'm here to answer your questions. But if you're a little nervous about it, you all have my card. You can email me or call me, and I'll be happy to answer anything. So in 1 year, we received over 1,500 complaints. Somewhere between 5 and 10% of them will result in disciplinary actions by our commission. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission was established in 1957, and there are 9 commission members. 7 of them are appointed by the governor, 1 by the House, 1 by the Senate. They each serve 3-year terms. So what that means is every year, 3 will be rolling over, and we'll get either 3 new ones or they'll be renewed. Only 3 of them are generally real estate brokers. The rest are attorneys or just regular citizens of North Carolina. That provides a really good mix that you can look at it from different perspectives than just the way a broker would or just the way an attorney would. And consumers have an entirely different opinion on how real estate should work. So it's nice to bring that to us. So about 95% of these complaints are going to be closed at our staff level. We have about 65 people that work with the Real Estate Commission. We have 8 attorneys. We have 5 consumer protection officers. So what happens generally, the process is someone will call, speak to me, and they'll just run it by me. Bruce, do you think we have an issue here? Is this something that doesn't comply with state license law, Real Estate Commission rule, landlord tenant law, vacation rental act, something like that? If they feel like there's an issue, we kind of go through it on the phone and then we say, yes, go ahead and file a complaint. If you want to file a complaint, go to our homepage, and on the bottom of our homepage, there's a link that says file a complaint. Just click on that. It'll go to an online complaint form, and you can fill it out, and you can upload up to 10 documents right then and there. So if you got your listing agreement, purchase contract, things like that, emails from another broker that just don't seem to be right, load all that information. In doing a complaint, the more information you give us, the more thorough, more in-depth investigation we can do to make sure that we get to a better resolution for you. See, I'm putting people to sleep, so I'll get off of that part. But what happens is we will investigate. And in an investigation, it will stay on your record forever. We are a governmental agency, and as a result, we're subject to a public records request law. So therefore, anything that you send in goes and becomes part of the public record. So if you do want to do it anonymously, or you don't want your name out there, that's fine. Go ahead, even anonymously. Leave your name off of it and leave your contact. If you're sending us something, a contract that has your name on it, well, redact that somehow, okay? Just so we can do our investigation. Okay. So let's see. This is the important thing is a lot of people think that our provisional brokers are the ones that are getting the complaints. Not so. The average length of time that a broker has had their license that has a complaint filed against them is they've been doing it for 15 years and they've done something wrong. People are like, well, wait, they've been in the business longer. How can that be? because our provisional brokers, we just have a provisional broker. You're taking your test, yes?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that.
All right, well, good luck to you. Provisional broker, okay. There's some of the smartest brokers that are out there because they're taught all of the new rules, all the new laws, all of that. So they're the ones that you might bend their ear a little bit too, because see what they've learned in school, because one, they're still retaining it. I forgot everything. I got my license in 2002. So, and I still have my license. You have to have a license when you work for the real estate commission, but it's inactive. So I can't steal any of, what's that other gentleman had a $20 million deal? I can't steal those deals, but I work on transactions with brokers. In an average day, I'll solve somewhere around 15 to $20 million of transactional problems that there are. I work on transactions, I've done them for $750, and I've worked on $1 billion transactions. Does not matter. They're just as important. That family that was selling that $750 piece of land, that meant the world to them. So did this $1 billion transaction to all the families that had invested into that company buying it. So it does not matter. Don't think that your question is too silly, too small, whatever. We're here to support you. And that's how we prevent having complaints filed. So the top 10 complaints, 47% of the complaints that we get are material facts. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you can get your material facts right, you eliminate a 50% chance of having a complaint filed against you. So material facts is key. This is the least favorite part of all of my presentations. So I just want to let you know, a lot of people aren't going to be happy about it. But basically what I'm saying is that as brokers, because of the way that the market has evolved and the business has changed and so forth, you have more and more responsibilities. You're going to know, you're going to hit the ground running and you'll get it right. But our more seasoned brokers are going to be like, geez, we didn't have to used to do that. But unfortunately, this world is changing. And with that, we have to adapt. So what we have to do is there's more work that needs to be done. Okay. So let me just go through these real quick and then I'll talk about the work. So number one is misrepresentation. You're all highly trained, very, very skilled brokers. And so sometimes you'll go into a subdivision and you'll say, I know this subdivision is not sewer, right? Or I know it's on water. I just know that because I've sold the house across the street. Never assume, ever. You have to verify all of these things. Misrepresentation. When you fill out a MLS data sheet, there's a lot of information on there. And that information is what a consumer uses to decide whether or not they want to look at a property, or if they don't want to look at a property, to submit an offer on the property. So they rely on your listing information. Everything you put in on that MLS sheet, you're responsible for. The real estate commission, we don't require you to put any of that information on there. Yes.
Okay, so I'm actually dealing with a situation right
now.
Yeah. Where my client purchased a home last year, and now we have a septic issue. Okay. So in the MLS, the listing put in the application for permit for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Okay. And as a new agent, not new at the time, but dealing with my first septic issue, right? Septic. I read the permit, saw the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and there was an approved permit at the file that I mistakenly was approved, right? Well, after I went back and looked at this permit 2 weeks ago, I realized that there was nothing actually written as far as the number of bedrooms that. So the listing agent's been great, right? We're going to take care of the client. But in a scenario like that, does he also bear brunt to this? I talked to one of my good partner over there. She's like, you should call check to make sure, right? I didn't. Right? So she's corrected me, right? We're gonna take it far, but does the listing agent also have some responsibility for that as well too? Being that he actually put that permit in, this is the home as a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, but the permit wasn't actually approved.
Amazing question. This is the essence of material facts. Brokers have a higher duty to discover and disclose the material facts on the property, even if the owner represents something different. Now, notice I said brokers. Both the buyer's agent and the listing agent both have the same duty to discover and disclose material facts. So what that means is buyer's agent should have gotten the permit. If you're not 100% sure about the permit, show it to your BIC. If your BIC isn't sure about it, contact the municipality. Say, what does this mean? Does this mean this property is actually approved or not? Has it been signed off? One of the things that you'll see in your contracts in section 8H, your offer to purchase, governmental compliance, right? In that section, it asks if the property is in violation of any governmental regulations or so forth, including permits. So one of the things that as brokers you need to do is you need to pull all of those permits. Not just pull to see that they have been pulled initially, right? They've been applied for, but you want to see that they've actually been signed off on, okay? And they've gotten a certificate of occupancy. We get permits all the time that have been paid for, but they haven't been signed off on. So therefore, it's still a permitted space or whatever.
Hey, Bruce.
However, so anyway, that's why brokers are very upset, is that they feel like they can just rely on what the listing agent says. Never rely on what the listing agent says, okay? Go into it as if it is your own listing as a buyer's agent. Now, this is where people get upset and say, well, how am I supposed to know what to do? Well, it's quite simple. Take the Residential Property and Owners Association disclosure statement. Those list the material facts of a property. So go through, when you are going to show a property to somebody as a buyer's agent, what you want to do is, you don't want to go through and not say, you know, that's a beautiful mural, I can put my sofa here and all that. No, that's not your job. You're a licensed real estate professional. Your job is to look at this property and be the eyes, be the professional who's looking at this property to see, does this make sense for my client? Is this a good property? Is this a good investment? Where are the potential problems on this property? So when you walk into a property, you're looking for the settlement price. You're looking for a settlement price question?
Well, follow up to that.
Yeah.
Because you're fixing the residential property disclosure, right? So in this same scenario, the seller put no representation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it truly is a 2-bedroom, one bath, my clients have only been there for 4 years, and they're having these issues. And she was there for maybe 5 years, right? With the same number of kids also. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, either the permit is correct and it's not filed for some reason, right? So we've got a separate company going out today, as a matter of fact, check it to see if it really truly is a 3-2.
Yeah.
Because on file it said it's 2-1. But is there any responsibility that she has as a seller? Because you said no provision of or did you? Great, good. You have to be smarter than us, right?
Who's going to get that right on the exam?
Okay.
Yes.
So does the seller bear any responsibility? No.
No.
Okay.
We've got the Residential Property Disclosure Act, which causes the creation of that form. And on there, the seller has 3 options. But yes, if they're aware of a material fact. To put no, they are not aware of a material fact and no representation, which means they may or may not know if there's a problem, and they're not choosing not to disclose it or represent it. That is a legitimate response to it, and it removes their liability. The problem where they run into a potential problem is if they put no, and then there is a problem, they've opened themselves up to a liability. So the seller, if the seller had put no, it removes the burden off of the list, off the seller, it places it squarely on the listing agent, and it is always on the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is required to verify all the facts that are on the the MLS data sheet. Okay, so seller would be off free. Listing agent can be sued by the buyer for misrepresentation. Buyer's agent can be sued for not doing their due diligence. Most likely they'll go after the listing agent, right? Because they're the ones that did it. It's understandable. Real estate commission, if you had a copy of that permit and you said, this indicated to me that it was okay, that it was as advertised, they give you slightly a pass on it. Say, okay, no worries. You know, they're not unreasonable. They're just asking what highly trained professionals, what would you reasonably do? And if you read, and you did your due diligence, right? You looked at the permit, you read it, and that was the impression you got. You can make, yes.
So I worked before coming here, I worked in Union County a lot. And like when you call them, they're like, well, we don't know, we haven't had records. We've only had records within 15 years. And you're like, what? Like they have no idea what happened 60 years ago. So
Yeah.
you're like
Great question.
chasing your tail, trying to figure out if things were permitted, if like bedrooms count, or like how do you deal with that?
So such a good question. See, this is why we're never going to go through this presentation. But this is really important information for all of you. Is if, for instance, there's a state law that says that all counties are to keep copies of septic permits until they're connected to a municipal system. We have counties that say we don't hold on to any permits for more than 6 years. Right? So what do? What you do is you do just what you did, was you create a disclosure saying, to the best of our knowledge and our due diligence, what we determined was we have tax records that indicate that this is a 3-2. We have, maybe you have an old permit or not, we have 5 previous listings that show it as a 3-2. We have investigated to the best of our ability. When you were talking about you're having a septic company going out, have a septic company. If you're doing the listing, this is not your expense, it's the seller's expense. You have a listing, have the seller hire a septic company to go out and look at the tank, identify the drain fields, and see if they can have it re-permitted or a permit reissued stating that's a 3-2. So you want to do these things ahead of time, because you tell otherwise, you take the last bit of information that you have and you say, we believe that this is it. Here's a list of all of our due diligence. Here's a list of the people that we contacted. We contacted the municipality. We talked to utilities. We talked to zoning. We talked to planning. We talked to permitting. We talked to code enforcement. We talked to inspections. These are the different people we talked to, dates and time. This is the information that we received pertaining to this. So you can create a disclosure that is very general as far as we just don't know for sure, but you're disclosing to the best of your ability. So if it's something that's readily findable as a matter of public record, we expect that you're going to find it. Yes.
I would also put it back on the buyer client to ask them, hey, this is what I found out. Do you want to take a step and have a septic tank, septic company out or whatever have you, and have them sign off with it. That's the good thing about the professional services disclosure.
Totally agree. But yeah, so if you're the listing agent, advise your seller that this is something you want to do because you want to get the most out of your property. You want to be able to represent it as a 3-2, because if you only have records of it being a 2-1, right, you're going to do much better if it's a 3-2. So if you pay $500 for a septic and suddenly you can get an extra bedroom, an extra bath out of it, you've increased the value of the property to $1,000. So it's worth it, but some people don't have that ability. So you're exactly right, is just doing your disclosure of what you found, and then advise the buyer, maybe that's what we want to do. Problem that you have as a buyer is you can't do these inspections until you submit an offer. So when you go to submit your offer, you may want to adjust your due diligence and your earnest money to reflect the uncertainty of what has to be done and how much you're willing to put at risk. So great answer, great answer.
What about the fact that MLS, I mean, I don't know, I can only go back 1,000 days, 999 days, like how far, and you can't go back that far in terms of listing.
So it depends on your MLS. Other MLSs will go back 20 years. So go back as much as you just go back.
999 days is the most I've been able to do. So I just jump on Zillow or Redfin or one of those to try to get the info from previous.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, do what you can reasonably do. The key is this first one that we're talking about is misrepresentation, which is don't make something up.
Right.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. The question I'm asking for FHA approval, the seller needs to share that information with us. Would that be considered a good action?
What are you just talking about, the appraised value or?
Yeah.
So anything associated with what they did to get the FHA approved, like if something.
Oh, okay, the material things that
Right,
they would
they
do.
need to share that with the buyer.
So great question. We get this question a lot about inspections, so I'm going to tie it into an FHA. So we want to talk a little bit about that as well. But inspections, if you are a listing agent and you receive an inspection report, we get calls all the time. Can I share that inspection report? The answer is it's up to the seller. It is not up to the buyer. It's not up to the buyer's agent unless the seller and buyer have signed an agreement that it would not be shared. Otherwise, if it is shared from the buyer or the buyer's agent to the listing agent or to the seller, the presumption that it is confidential and cannot be shared is lost because it was shared already. Okay?
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
Wait, back that up. What you said?
Okay, so when it's shared from the buyer and buyer's agent to the listing agent or to the seller,
Right.
the presumption of confidentiality and the ability for it to be shared, cannot be shared, is lost because it has been shared already one time. It's been shared with the listing agent. It's been shared with the seller. So the question is, can I use that inspection report? It's up to the seller.
Got it.
If the seller says no, you may not share the inspection report. Okay? But you have a duty to discover and disclose material facts, so you must create your own disclosure and post that of all the material facts that were found in the inspection report.
All right. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, how about we look at this?
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry.
You didn't have to disclose that it's seller fixed those items.
That's correct, yeah. Only thing, now, there's such a good question there, too. She said, if you fix things, do you have to disclose them? You do not if it's been fixed, except for one thing. If it was structural in nature, if it was foundation, if it was joists, if it was rafters, if it was sill plates, if it was bands, if it's structural, even though it's fixed by a licensed general contractor, created by a structural engineer, creates a report and how it should be repaired, it's been permitted, and inspected and actually brought back to a better condition than new, forever, you must disclose a structural issue that was with that property. Do not forget that. Structural issues is the only thing that if it's fixed, it has to be disclosed going forward. Such an awesome question. I love
How
it.
about mold?
Mold. If it's been fully remediated, then you do not need to disclose it. The remediation should have documentation like air quality tests and things like that and surface tests and so forth. But if it's been fully remediated, number one, and number two, the cause of the mold has been resolved, then you do not need to disclose it. Mold is a big, big problem.
Yeah.
Very, very big. Particularly, I don't know why, but more so it seems to be in Charlotte. I get more calls about mold in Charlotte. So strange. I don't know.
So just to follow up that question, so when we create our own data, does this need to be uploaded to less, or do we just have to share it upon the city?
I love this stuff. I'm putting this thing down. So, no, this is what I do all day, is I get, my job is for adrenaline junkies because you get all these awesome questions. So, but with disclosing material facts, you want to create this document, right? You only need to disclose material facts prior to a buyer submitting an offer. You do not have to put it on the MLS. Okay? Only to a buyer prior to submitting an offer. It can be done verbally. Right? I strongly encourage you to do it in writing, right?
Yeah.
Anything you do
Right.
in writing. That's right. So, but the rule is you only need to disclose the material facts prior to a buyer submitting an offer. Generally, that's pretty easy to do because you have buyer's agents that can download it from your documents manager or whatever that is on your MLS, and they'll have all of that. So you don't have to put it in public remarks. You don't have to put it in agent-only remarks. You just need to disclose it beforehand. Now, we have what we call best practice. And our best practice is to make sure that it is disclosed because there are a lot of people, I don't know about in this market as much. We have a lot of people moving to North Carolina that are buying properties without brokers, sight unseen. So if you're the listing agent, you're responsible because they have already submitted an offer. You fail in disclosing the material facts prior to them submitting an offer. Now, everything that's found in their inspection report, you're responsible for. Okay? So you want to make sure that if you're going to be, if your market is that you're getting a lot of sight unseen buyers, you may want to put in the public remarks, please contact the listing agent prior to submitting an offer or disclosure of material facts, or however you want to word it. I'm not an attorney, I can't give you legal advice, but that's generally what we call our best practice, is to get that information out there. I guess I have to pick this up then. The next one. So misrepresentation is our number one, where our brokers haven't done their due diligence. Let's see. Omission. That's, well, we're going to cover these individually, but that's the next thing. Septic. So we spent a lot of time talking about septic and sewer. Huge problem. It is every day. I get a call from a seller who said, I bought this property and it's on septic and I thought it was on sewer. Or it's on sewer and I thought it was on septic. The problem that you have is, how do we verify that information, right? If you're a listing agent, if you're a buyer's agent, you want to get a copy of their utility bill. That is not enough. You must contact your utility department and say, here's the address of this property. What utilities service this property? Is this on community or city water? Is this on city sewer? So you want to make sure this is both the listing agent and buyer's agent, because you're going to catch a lot of your colleagues who will just assume, and that was the misrepresentation or omission. was talking to. So that's where you're gonna be spending more time on the phone or on websites. So, well water, square footage, heated living area, big area that, we talk about is, I probably 4 or 5 times a day, I'll get a phone call about somebody who has what they'll call, additional square footage. They'll say that there's a basement, or they'll say that there's an attic, and they'll say, can I call it heated living area? Well, it has to meet our criteria. Now, you all should have in pre-licensing, maybe you can answer the question. Did you get an orange booklet from us that says measurement guidelines? Okay. You might get that in 301, like take your post-licensing. But we have a booklet, and if any of you need it, it's on our website. If you can't find it, email me, I'll email you our measurement guidelines. But generally speaking, to determine if a space is heated living area, one, it has to be permitted. Okay, we keep going back to permits. When we're talking about misrepresentations being number one, our number one problem this year is going to be permits, not being pulled. So permits is number one for you to make sure that you're pulling these, okay? But to determine if a space is heated living area, number one, it has to be permitted. Number two, the space has to be finished off in materials generally accepted for interior construction. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, if you have a concrete floor, this is not material that's generally accepted for interior construction. This would not be considered a heated living area. You can go in and do, they're doing a fancy polishing of the floors and putting, team logos and things like that on the floor. They can spend more money on that than they would, say, hardwoods or tile or something like that. It still doesn't count as heated living area. Concrete does not count as heated living area. If you have cinder block walls, if you have brick walls that are painted, that is not a material generally accepted for interior construction. That disqualifies that space. Okay. The ceiling, if you have exposed rafters, right? That is not a material generally accepted for interior construction. If you have ventilation like this, what would happen here is that this would have to be boxed in and around it. This ceiling height would have to be 7 feet or higher. And when you drop in the box, the height from the floor to the bottom of the box can't be any less than 6 feet 4 inches. Okay, so you can box around it. And if you have a space that comes to a point, right, you have a vaulted living room or something like that, it has to be 50% of that ceiling height has to be 7 feet or higher. If it's not, it is not, the whole space is not. So you have an attic that someone has finished off, right? You go up there and it's got the vaulted roof. If 50% of that space is not 7 feet or higher, you can't count any of that space as heated living area. If it is 50% or more, you can count down to 5 feet and then drop a line straight down. And that's the heated area. Anything outside of that is not. I know it's kind of complicated, just get our book. There's a lot to it, but that's where we get into a lot of problems. So, and I'll show you on a chart. I think I have in this presentation on it. So let me send it to you, go through it as you're looking at each property. Another thing that you can do is you can measure each other's properties. You can practice it. So you can go to each other's house and understand the rules. If you have condos, where do you measure from on a condo, right? It's paint to paint, right? If you have a townhouse, where do you measure on a townhouse, right? It's in the middle of the walls. Where do you measure a home? The outside, the perimeter of the home. So these are all things that are in the measurement guidelines. I tell you what, I'll send a copy of it and then we'll distribute it to everybody and then blow it up really big. This is all here to match that. So cool. All right. You don't do much with trust accounts? No. Yeah. The only thing I want to talk about trust accounts for you is cash. It has to be a firm policy. So talk to Sean. what to do about cash. Because as brokers, I keep missing, I apologize, that I'm right in that, but cash, if you have a buyer that gives you due diligence in cash, that cash has to be deposited into your trust account. It has to clear your trust account. But,
So to explain to my.
yeah, no, I wasn't looking over there.
Don't take any cash.
That can be a firm policy. We should write it, have it written down to protect you. Because anytime you receive cash, it must first go into a trust account. It has to clear the trust account. You think, oh, putting cash right away in the account, you can't. It has to clear, it has to show as a credit. And so you have to wait a day. What does that do? As a buyer's agent, you know that the due diligence fee is due the day, the effective date of the contract. The effective date of a contract is the day in which the last party notifies the first party that you are under contract. And by midnight, due diligence is due. Okay? No exception. If you say as a listing agent, you can get it to me tomorrow, you have breached your fiduciary duty to your client. Your client tells you whether or not they're okay with you getting the money that day. If the buyer's agent says to the listing agent, I'll get it to you tomorrow, it's 10 o'clock at night, I'll get it to you tomorrow. Buyer's agent has just put the buyer in breach of contract. If you're giving cash, it has to go into an account, it has to clear, that's an extra day. Now, not only you have now put your client in breach of contract. That's how important cash is, or not to touch it. But that's up to you, if you want to go there. Yeah. People will say, okay, well, it's due by 10 o'clock at night, okay? That's not practical. It's a Saturday night, okay? How do we get around it? The contract says it's due by midnight. It's due that effective date. The only way that you can get around not getting due diligence money to the seller is if the buyer and seller agree in writing when the due diligence will be delivered and in what form. So will it be FedEx? Will it be hand delivered? Will it be cash? Because the buyer can deliver cash. Can it be Venmo? What form is going to be? Both parties have to agree. They have to sign it and make that an addendum to the contract in section 14, where it says attorney or party drafted addenda, and it has to be listed there.
So that was my question, that last thing. So we can't draw that, right?
You may not.
So it's 10 o'clock on Saturday, the attorney's office is closed, right?
Yep.
They want to make an agreement to do that. How do they do it if we can't really get it?
So good question. What happens is usually the BIC will contact an attorney this afternoon and have this already made up, that you fill in the blanks as to what the terms are and when and how it's to be delivered and all of that. And it's titled, delivery of due diligence fee. It's titled like that, and then it's put as part of the contract.
Let's get one of those.
I have a question about Zelle and Venmo and all of those. Like if it's like 5,000, sometimes it won't allow you to sell. Zelle, that much money. What do you do when it's like partial payments? Because I've had that where it's like, okay, I can send 1,500 today, 1,500 tomorrow, and the other person seems fine with it. Like, how do you deal with partial payments?
You gotta get it right.
So I was in a CE class and the instructor said we're not supposed to pay. I have done Zelle and cash out, but she said we're not supposed to pay.
As brokers, because what happens is
Yeah, I'm not, but my client is Zelle
your clients can absolutely do Zelle.
Yeah.
They have, in fact, it even says in the contract on the bottom of page 1, I believe, it'll say that if there are other means, electronic means by which it's to be transferred, both parties agree to cooperate with one another, and the cost associated with that is borne by the buyer. So it's actually written into the contract, and it's done, I would say in North Carolina, it's probably done 200-300 times a day. So it's done quite a bit. So there may have been different question posed, or they may have brought it up some other way, or referencing something else, because it's been even wire transfers and so forth. So
Yeah, she was just saying we couldn't have. I mean, but I'm personally not for my clients.
clients can do it all day long. Remember, as brokers, you're not a party to the contract. Okay, you're not. A real estate transaction has two things happening simultaneously. One, there's a buyer and seller. It's a bilateral agreement. So if there's a dispute, it's between the buyer and seller. As soon as one of you is involved in the transaction, then the real estate commission is involved in the transaction. And that's where we talk about what you can and cannot do, right? Because you're not party to the transaction, in buyer or seller. Buyer and seller can do whatever they want. These forms are created by your trade organization, right? The contracts. Buyer and seller can literally do it on a napkin, right? If they want to do it. These forms are really designed to try and protect each party and also protect the brokers at the same time. So yes, if they agree to it, that's fine. If they want to, do a down payment of a car, they can do a down payment of a car if they want. The lender allows. So yeah,
I think the reason why they probably said that is because it's a charge.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna incur a charge, so, you do 1,500, it may be a 5% charge.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people don't wanna do it.
yeah. But it can be done.
Yeah.
If somebody's,
It's the same thing with the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna get charged for that. But I will say, just because this happened to me, if you have a DPA, I don't know any other case that it would happen in, but the loan officer sometimes then wants the entire bank statement.
Yeah,
to prove- right,
that it came out of the account.
Exactly. Yeah. So it becomes like even more complex, because now they gotta turn around and send, and sometimes they haven't done it yet. So like the bank statement isn't ready, and then you have to prove it.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a real problem, because usually I get calls from brokers that say, bless you, on page 17, what do we do about acknowledgement of receipt of funds? You're the buyer's agent, you've never touched it, right? If it's been Zelle, if you're a listing agent, you've never touched it. Well, what do I do as a broker? I've got, Yachty requires that I submit complete forms, and it requires signatures in all those spaces.
Right.
Right? You do.
No, I only require the seller unless I know for a fact he touched the money.
Right. You touch the money. So what you want to do is you want to write a note to your file that states what happened in this transaction, that the due diligence money was Venmoed to the seller. What you want to ask from your buyer is documentation that it was actually sent. So you protect yourself. From your seller, you need to have some sort of acknowledgement that it was received. Okay? They don't have to show you their account. They can send you an email saying, I received that money. You just need to follow. It's an extra step that you have to do. But technology is great, but it causes more work sometimes to our brokers. What was that, Cindy? You don't do any property management?
No.
Okay. That's a big part of it. Actually, it's probably a third of our complaints. Is property management.
Yeah, the trust account.
Most of the time you do. It depends if you're touching other people's money. If you're collecting rent, you have to. If you're collecting tenant security deposit, you have to. But landlords are trying to do this work themselves. So they're collecting the rent directly, and they're collecting the tenant security deposit. So you wouldn't have to have. So that's a firm policy. The problem is that you can't pay any of the bills. Because let's say that the landlord gives you money back to pay for landscaping, right? Pays for roofing repair or HVAC person, right? They say, can you pay this company? Here's, a lump sum of money. The moment you've gotten that money back from the landlord, it has to go into a trust account because it's not your firm's money. You're co-mingling. You have to set up a trust account, and then it has to be paid out of that trust account. You have to keep all the records. If you do, make sure that your landlord pays all the bills, which is a segue into Airbnb and VRBOs. Any of you interested in co-hosting or anything like that? Yeah. So the question we get a lot is, do you have to be a broker to do Airbnb? The answer depends, right? It depends on if you're touching the money, right? So let's say that you get paid a portion of the money because Airbnb will allow you to get paid, right, from that. But then some of that money is used to pay house cleaning, landscaping, HVAC. Now you have somebody else's money. That money has to go into a trust account, and then it's paid out of that trust account. If it goes into a trust account, there has to be a BIC.
What about your own?
If you're doing your own personal, it doesn't matter. Well, that's why I said co-hosting. You're co-hosting, right? If you're doing your own, you don't have to. Now, if you're just renting your own property, you take a tenant security deposit, you have to put it in a specially labeled account. You have to keep those records because you're a broker. That's one of the things is you still have to follow our rules. All right. Termination of contracts, broker conduct, and poor communications. We find that, and I've really done a lot of this presentation related to conversation. We find that probably of the 1,500 complaints we get every year, probably 800 of them could have been avoided just by brokers communicating with their principal or with the other side. Just talking to people, you can solve problems. You'd be amazed. We could fix this world if we could just talk to each other. I don't know why we choose not to, but that's just the way it is. As brokers, you can solve most of your problems by just communicating to the other side. Your principals will work it out amongst themselves. But if you don't respond and you don't give the other side the information, they don't know what to think. And they are certainly going to take a defensive posture, right? Because we're talking about either somebody's main investment, right, their home, or you have somebody who's investing a lot of money into a property. We're talking about a lot of money, so we want to make sure, please just communicate. Communicate as quickly as possible to your principal. Communicate to the other brokers. This is a profession, okay? And so the responses should be thorough, detailed, and professional, okay? I'm not a fan of text messaging, just because you can be a little cryptic in it, and it's sometimes hard to convey really the full details. I prefer to see things in writing, because if you put it in an email, you can track the emails and you can document the time that it was so forth and return receipts. So the definition of what is a material fact. A material fact is any fact that could affect a reasonable person's decision to buy, sell, or lease. Okay. So the hard part is, what is a reasonable person? Because I'm sure you run into a lot of unreasonable clients and so forth. So that's really hard to come by. Real estate commission does not decide what that is. The courts decide what a reasonable person would or would not accept as a property, okay, and a disclosure. Material facts can be facts about the property itself, facts affecting the property, facts about the principal's ability to perform, which talks about, thankfully, it has slowed down. Last year at this time, the year before, we had so many people passing away due to COVID. And as a result, we had a lot of estate properties. You get an estate property, be prepared that it's extremely complicated. It's not like a regular listing. You have to find out, has the estate, does it have a will or not? Is there an executor or executrix or not? Has the will been open or the estate been opened? Has it been probated? Has there been an administrator appointed? All of this, have the heirs been identified? Have the beneficiaries been identified? Is it in a trust? Who are the trustees? Because we get calls to say, who wants to, who's supposed to sign the listing agreement?
Right.
Who's supposed to sign
All of it.
all of it? You got to run all this down. You want to talk to the estate attorney. Let me tell you a story about something. I got a call from a broker. She calls and she said, my father passed away. I said, very sorry to hear that. How can I help? She said, well, I want to list the property, and how do I do that? I said, well, you would do it as a regular listing, but let's find out this other information. I said, we first have to, did your father have a will? She said, I don't know. I said, well, we got to establish that. I said, we have to find out, do you have an estate attorney? No, I don't believe so. Have you opened the will? Have you gone to the clerk of superior court to open will? I didn't know we had to do that. I said, do you have a copy of the death certificate? This was 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. She said, we just passed away 10 o'clock last night. So that's what we're dealing with out there is people, unfortunately, there are a lot of hard times. People are suffering, and this can save a lot of lives, a lot of families, a lot of things. So you want to get it right, and you want to do it right the first time, because what happens is if you don't do your due diligence to make sure that you can sell this property, you're not going to be able to close. The estate's now going to have to pay for the buyer's inspections, their appraisal, their attorney's fees, right? So now you have reached your fiduciary duty to your client, the seller, because you caused them to spend money they may not have. But estates don't have that. So if you have estate properties, you have to be very, very careful. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're good. We're good? Okay. All right.
I have a question about covenant. So is it enough for you to deliver the covenant, or do you have to because some of these things are like hundreds of pages.
Right, so really good question. In doing this, you want to get to know your client really, really well. And ask them, what are you looking for in a property? Okay? Do you have a business that should be parking your truck in the driveway and it says the name on it? Do you want to raise chickens? Can you have roosters? Do you have roosters, right? Do you want to raise, I had somebody who wanted to, they ran, actually was just northwest of here, about 50 miles, was a miniature goat rescue farm. They bought it and they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of building barns and places and fences, and they started bringing in all these rescue goats. Turns out there was covenants that said they couldn't raise farm animals. And so they tried to do something really good, and they lost a lot of money on that, and they had to get rid of the goats. That was heartbreaking too. So read the covenants, find out what's important to your client, and if they've got to put in a ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit, find out if that's allowed. It can be allowed by the municipalities, and municipalities are agreeing to it, but covenants aren't. Another thing, with rental properties, a lot of homeowners associations do not want to have Airbnbs. They don't want to have rental properties. So what they do is they find out that the property was just sold to an investor who's going to rent it out. They call an emergency meeting. They change the covenants. No rental properties. They'll record those covenants 3 days prior to closing. Investor will go to close. And they can't rent it. So what happens is the investor, they'll set it up in an LLC. They'll stop paying the mortgage. It'll go into foreclosure. It brings down all the other property values around it. So you have to be very, very careful on the covenants. So I advise you, on your way to closing, pull the covenants again, look for any changes, any amendments. If that's important to your client, right? If chickens are important to your client, pull those covenants. If having a business, a whole business is important to your client, pull those covenants and read and look for that. If they're an architect and they want to do an addition to the property that is not consistent with the rest of the properties around there, you want to try and seek homeowners association approval prior to submitting an offer, if possible. If not, during the due diligence period, so they don't put earnest money at risk, to make sure they can do what they want to do. Okay, so pull the covenants, but know what your client wants, so you know what to look for in the covenants, and you can point them to it. And you also give it to them and say, read this, because you are bound by this. All right, so duty to discover and disclose, ask questions to verify, make visual inspections, the residential property owners association, checking all the public records. We have a tremendous amount of fraud going on, particularly in this area. Okay, we have fraudulent sellers every day. I get 1 to 2 phone calls a day. Last year at this time, it was 3 to 4 phone calls a day where there were fraudulent sellers. I talked to an attorney from Charlotte here. From September to November, he was responsible for transferring 8 properties fraudulently. He did not know it. What the scammers are doing is well, I won't tell you the website. What the scammers are doing is I go to this one particular website, and you can buy a North Carolina license that will pass all of our standard testing for $95. You go and you pull the public records, right? You go to the property, you pull up the deed, you've got the name and address of the owner. They put the name and address of the owner on it. They can pull, they can create, they can pull, just Google search somebody's name, and there are companies that will say they'll identify this person. They'll say this person was born in 1950, right, on the state. They'll put that on the driver's license. Very little work, and they can, create that state ID. And then what they'll do is they'll contact one of our brilliant listing agents and say, hey, listen, I've got this property. It's a $500,000 property. I got to sell it quick. I will take any cash offer and I'll sell it for $300,000. And they have to close in 2 weeks. So what will happen is broker, and they'll say, I will give you 10% commission. You're going to work for crazy, right? They're going to say, okay, so they'll try and go through the whole transaction. And the documentation they're looking for, the attorney is looking for, is the driver's license. And they'll do all their checks. And they will see, this looks to be sufficient due diligence to verify that this is in fact the owner of the property. When it's not, it happens every day. So what happens is now brokers, I just wrote a lot of the bulletin articles that you see, I co-authored a lot of them. There was an article I did 2 Decembers ago about fraudulent buyers and sellers. And we have recommendations in there what you should do as far as identifying who a fraudulent seller is. Try and get passports. Although we've seen forged passports. I get some of the yellow flags that you need to look for is you'll get a call from somebody, particularly land. Land is about 90% of the fraudulent sellers. So if you get a call on vacant land, man, that should suddenly make your ears perk up. It's a yellow flag right off the bat. But what will happen is the person will call and say, I have really bad phone connection. I can only communicate with you via text messaging or email. So they'll make that initial thing. Say, oh, you want my driver's license? Sure. And they'll email their driver's license. So what will happen is you'll continue to communicate by email to these folks, and they'll have a whole variety of stories. I've heard of people who said, I work on an oil rig in the South China Sea. I am 13 hours behind you, and therefore our schedules will never meet. And I work 12-hour shifts, and then I work 6 days a week. So when it's just been so much easier for me to just communicate by email. They'll say things like, my aunt is ill. She is in Italy. I'm in Italy right now and found out I have to put her in a nursing home. I have to sell this parcel of land really quickly so I can pay the down payment to get my aunt into a nursing home. These are all real stories. So, and I can go all day long just on these stories. Vacant land, you have to verify. So how do you verify somebody's the owner? Well, I recommend, if it's at all possible, to meet them in person. As soon as they say that they're traveling, that's another red flag. Right.
Or they live out of state.
Big. Yeah. So also, here's another example of somebody I don't know. And he said he wanted to just report that somebody tried to buy his property in Edenton. And he said that, and he lived in Winston. And he said, I got a call from a broker friend of mine in Edenton. And my broker friend said, I'm so sorry to hear about your wife's passing. He said, my wife didn't pass. And they got to talking, and they said, well, I talked to your real estate agent who said that you had told him that you had to sell this property quick in order to pay her hospital bills, or else you were going to lose your house. And so this other broker has been trying to sell this thing really, really quick. And so he told him, he contacted the broker that was listing the property. The broker didn't believe it. He said, no, I know who this person. And they asked, did you ever meet him? You know, I could talk to him, well, one time, but we had bad connection, so we've been communicating. But he sent me a driver's license. What had happened was, 2 weeks earlier, the broker, or the seller, had been walking through a Walmart. He was walking through a Walmart, and he went to the checkout counter. I love Walmart. So he went to the checkout counter, went to pay for it. He had lost his wallet. He had not lost his wallet. He had been pickpocketed. They had taken his driver's license, scanned it in, and sent it to somebody in another country. They have a whole mill of people swapped out the photo, put this other person's photo on it, and sent it back, and got the property listed all within 2 weeks. Another vacant land story. But I want to make you aware of the fraudulent stuff. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you be aware. But there was somebody who was selling a vacant lot, and so he went to sell a vacant lot, and the neighbor called and said, the owner of the lot, I thought you were going to tell me when you were going to sell the lot so I could buy it. And she said, I'm not selling the lot. They were sisters. So what happened was, it was a fraudulent seller. So they contacted the broker on the sign. The broker came out, quickly removed the sign, took it off of the MLS. The next day, there was a new sign with another broker. It was taken down 2 days later. The following day, there was a new sign for another broker. They're going to use you. They're looking for you. Okay? Do your due diligence. Verify. Okay?
So they weren't doing their due diligence to see that it was listed in the MLS for agents.
They weren't doing their due diligence. makes you nervous when buying, when selling land. So I get very, it's great. I love to sell. I used to sell a lot of land. I used to do entire subdivisions. But I'd be very, very nervous about doing it now. So you really have to do your due diligence to verify that. Let's see. I won't go into any more. It's kind of depressing. This is fun.
So where's my wallet?
You don't need to know about the violations. Skip all that. We'll keep it on the happy note there. Let's see. If there's somebody who is a previous, if a contract, a property went under contract, and then it went back on the market, contract is terminated, that should let you know right away that there was some reason for it. Cannot always necessarily get the straight story from the listing agent, right? Because they want to sell the property. And we know that you do some puffing and you do some embellishment, which, you know, I think it's great. You're very creative. I have found that real estate agents are by far and away the most creative people on the planet. And if we could harness all this power that you have, this brain power, we could solve a lot of problems in this world. You are so creative. I actually have a t-shirt that's made up that says, what if? Every time somebody calls me and I give them the answer, it's followed up by what if? You always have a what if. I love those. So what you want to do is you want to do your due diligence. Here's an example of a listing agent said that the deal fell through because of buyer's financing. Well, what had happened, this recall I just got Thursday. What happened was it did fall through because of financing. Because, and this was to answer somebody else's question about VA. Somebody asked a question about VA. Okay. So what happened was the property didn't appraise by $100,000. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So what happened? So to answer the question of Chantel about appraisals and so forth, I get calls all the time. Our appraisals last recent graduate pre-tester. What's the story on appraisals? Are they a material fact? Okay. Don't need to put you on the spot, other than to say, yeah. This is what all brokers will say. It is. So thank you for that. Yeah, everyone, our appraisals material facts. Appraisals are a material fact, but appraisals are an opinion of value that day. Okay? So if the property has had an appraisal, a single appraisal, it is not a material fact, unless it is an FHA or VA appraisal, because those appraisals stay with the land. So a seller may not necessarily want to have a transaction that has an FHA or VA appraisal on it. So the question is, if there was an FHA or VA appraisal done, even if it's just the first one, that is a material fact and that must be disclosed. Okay. If there's a history of appraisals that are done that do not come in at value, if there are more than 2 appraisals that don't come in at contract price, the fact that they did not come in at contract price is a material fact. What the number was is not a material fact. Only that it has a history of not appraising. Okay. So, good question to get all the time. So the listing agent has to disclose things to all subsequent buyers. Our codes, the residential property disclosure statement should be amended as you're going along as things change on the property. We talked about the due diligence being delivered and the effective date. Really, it doesn't. Multiple offers. Are you still getting doing a lot of multiple offers now in this market?
Here and there.
Not much,
They say they have multiple offers.
Oh, yeah, they can't say that, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Huh.
so we won't go into,
Right.
so remember I said permits are going to be huge. Unpermitted square footage happens all the time. Can a property be sold if it has unpermitted square footage? If they've taken a sunroom and they've converted it into, you know, what they would call heated living area, you have to see if it matches that criteria in the measurement guidelines, and it was permitted. A lot of times people will do this on their own. They'll put one of those apartment air conditioning units in, and so forth. Question is, what's a permanent heat source at that point? And it'll be in that guide.
You just have to reduce the square footage, right?
So what you do is, so good question. So let's say that you have a sun, it was a deck converted into a sun, and it's 250 square feet. Depending on your MLS, most MLSs will say that you can put in the heated living area and then additional square footage, right? And it will total it. So let's say you have 2,000 square feet of heated living area, 250 square feet of additional square footage for a total of 2,250. You must break it down that there's only 2,000 square feet of heated living area and 250 of unpermitted or additional square footage, which may be an attic. We get a lot of questions about additional square footage, saying, well, it's not fair, that it's doesn't get the same value. Depends where you are. We get a lot of calls from the beach, and a lot of houses will face each other, so the back of the house will face the ocean on one side, right? So a lot of homeowners are building much nicer back parts of their house so they can see the ocean, but they're not getting it permitted. That space is unpermitted square footage, that's additional square footage. That has a higher value than the property that's facing another house across the street. So additional square footage doesn't mean you don't get the value for it. It absolutely has value, just not the same value that an appraiser will use for heated living area in that particular locale. Probably should have done this in order. Which is kind of like Sean said. Lots of unpermitted work. So, listing brokers must discover and disclose all material facts. You must present all offers. Every day I get phone calls from buyer's agents that say, I want the seller to sign a document stating that they received my offer. Doesn't exist, the seller does not have to respond. So be aware that the people are always wanting to have proof. They will file complaints, and they file them every day with your local board of realtors as an ethics complaint. And if they find that you are in violation, they have potential to fine you. Once they do that, they file a complaint to the real estate commission, because that's our rule. You must present all offers. And we get a lot of complaints about that. Advertising. We have a lot of social media going on. The rules about advertising, we can talk about this, is all of do you have a firm policy on advertising as far as social media and so forth?
I mean, you have to include lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. So our advertising rule says that all of your advertisements, so that's all of your Facebook posts, all of your Instagram, all of your Twitter, all of your YouTube, all of any promotions, your stickers on your car, your business cards, your Facebook and things like that. All of that has to be approved by your BIC. And it must contain Lifestyle International Realty. It must be visible in all of your ads on everything. So you can't just tweet, take a picture of a house and send it out and not have Lifestyle International Realty. And it must comply with firm rules. Yes.
What if your profile picture is the lifestyle?
Yeah, as long as it's associated with it, right? So it's, it's going to say Lifestyle International Realty. People are scrolling through it. Yes, that's sufficient brand on that, but you have to have that.
I want to make sure I'm clear with this question.
Yeah, me too.
So to make sure I'm clear with the question, I understand your profile picture is not a picture of you, but it's a picture that says Lifestyle International in your profile. And then he runs and he posts a picture of a house, but in the text he doesn't put Lifestyle International only because it's a profile picture.
Can you see Lifestyle International Realty at all times?
No.
Okay.
No, not really.
Yeah, so thanks for the clarification. So yes, you do have to have Lifestyle International Realty on all of that. So yes. Yeah.
On the actual picture, or like if it can.
It can be in the caption, sure.
But only if it's an app, not, because some people do personal and professional posts on the same profile.
Yeah, so only if it's germane to real estate and to what you're doing here. Now, the question we get a lot of is that you'll drive by a $5 million mansion. You want to jump out in front of that, take a picture in front of that, right? And say, I help you sell homes. Can't do that unless you have written consent of the owner and of the listing firm. Correct? Well, both. You can actually do both, right? Because the agency agreements are with the firm, but the agent needs to be aware because they have to notify the seller that they're allowing it to be, shown in other formats.
Can you just repeat that one more time to make sure that we all understand? This is that, but if I'm driving down the street, okay, and I see a home for sale, or not for sale, right? Let's say this one's not for sale, okay, and I see this beautiful home, I drive by, and I want to jump out, take a picture of myself in front of that house, because I want to buy a house like this one day, and I'll post that on my page. Can I do it? No.
Yeah.
The reason being is that you are misrepresenting that house is for sale. And you must have a listing information in order to advertise a property for sale.
Also, when we do like a
Say hi.
supposed to, you're not supposed to post a front unless you have. So, no, not even post your own picture. You have to get their permission to post it because it's not yours.
That's correct.
That's a great point. Okay, so what if you're not doing a picture? What if you're not doing a picture of the house and screwing like these people sorting in their neighborhoods and who are like this in the house? Are you allowed to do that?
You're running into a gray area because if you get one of the people that owns the house
Right.
that sees that and says, you advertise my house, you're running into a gray area. Probably at the end of the day, you're probably going to be okay. I would not recommend going there because I get calls quite every day, but every other day from property owners who are not listing their property for sale who say, my house is in a photograph of this house is for sale. I'm the next door neighbor. I don't want it in there. Okay, every day. I get where people are doing aerial drone photos that are showing entire subdivision. I know when that happens, because I get calls galore saying my house is being advertised. You know, problem, people want to be very private. It happens a lot with vacant land. Okay, because when you take an aerial of vacant land, you want to show the highways nearby. The issue that you run into is this just county, but municipality by municipality.
Okay.
And they have different rules. For instance, in Wake County, you have to have an electrician change a light switch or a light fixture or ceiling fan, right? Some of you can do it yourself. It's not. You have to have an electrician go and do that, but they do not have to pay a permit. If they're moving the outlet or the switch, it's not the same. It's not. Each municipality has different rules on it. Those rules impact whether you can do it yourself, which can impact the overall cost of whatever improvements.
Okay.
And it varies too how long you're staying in the property. And just because you didn't pull a permit does not mean that you can't sell the property. Just disclose that you didn't have permits pulled to that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you have to disclose it is because insurance companies might not insure the property because you did not have a permit. Risk of fire, risk of flooding, and stuff like that. Sure, those companies.
Okay. This agent has a lot of questions. Okay. Here's another one. I haven't seen this one before, but she says that due to the market shift, agent to agent conflict has increased significantly. Have any of you guys seen any conflict? I don't know. But further, she asks, while acknowledging the primary goal of the Real Estate Commission and safeguarding the public, is there any discussion regarding the establishment or oversight of guidance for prompt and appropriate interaction between real estate agents?
So, yes, there's, if you look at North Carolina General Statute 93A,
Okay.
license law, steps of it. It talks about what the commission was formed for and what you can be sanctioned for activity.
Mm-hmm.
Conduct is unbecoming of a local.
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous. So if you have roles that are feeding each other, inappropriate, and I don't know if the question is facetious, have you ever heard of any? That's all I had on the.
Really?
I mean, I have to say I get.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Most of these things are handled by the code of ethics
Okay.
or the realty, the one that really handles the code of ethics.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I'll let her know. Awesome. Wow. That's fine. I think we're good, yeah. Oh, y'all reaching about now? Y'all been y'all ready? Oh man. That's hilarious.
Just real quick, residential traffic disclosure statement is being redone.
Okay. Hold on, y'all. Y'all real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, the property disclosure statement is being redone. We did this back in March, April of last year. We posted it on our website in June and July, and we asked for more feedback. We got 624 recommendations. How to change the property disclosure statement after we changed it. Well, property disclosure statement is 7 pages long.
What?
Thanks. We can fill it out, so that's good. I have a question. Yeah. So, and I'm just speaking are many of the rules that are being made are to safeguard the public? Are these coming from people who actually have sold real estate as well? Anyone can make a recommendation on our website. to have a rule made or changed.
Mm.
Once a year, the commission looks at all of those, and they evaluate them on making changes. Understand we're a quasi-governmental agency, so a lot of it that has to do with Chapter 93A, which is license law, it has to be approved by the legislature. If it's 58A, right, that's the real estate commission. Those are policies. So it depends on, there's a crossover on where we have commission. Yeah. What it took for us to be able to do property tremendous. So, but we were able to do it. So inside, any questions on what? There's some questions on historic districts. So we've got a lot of changes. The river, falls, inputs from brokers. What's all 95%? Brokers, what was it? So yeah, so we do.